welcome. I'm Karuna. I'm the founder and executive director of Mind Oasis, and I am your primary contact for the 300-hour immersion and teacher training. There are 2 tracks, so you should know that right off the bat. You can join the immersion and simply come and strengthen your own personal practice, deepen your own practice. Or you can also learn how to guide others in the craft of meditation. So this is our 3rd annual immersion and teacher training, and there are 2 tracks. And we're doing things a little bit different. So each year, I would say we make some improvements based on feedback that we get from previous participants. And one of the pieces of feedback I've now gotten 2 years in a row is that having some continuity within the group, whether you decide to guide meditation or learn how to teach meditation, or if you're just deep diving for your personal practice, that it's really helpful to have everyone involved kind of simultaneously. So what I've done this year is I've actually broken out the teacher training aspect into its own. I think it's just an afternoon on a Saturday, or it's around the first part of November, so that the whole group will be meeting on Monday nights, 6:30 until 8:30 Central. We meet every 2 weeks. We start in about the 2nd or 3rd week in September. Yeah, so we start with a weekend retreat on September 10th. And everything is online. So regardless what happens with the pandemic, or regardless if people feel comfortable being together and things like that, everything will be online, so you can join from your home. And we kick off with that weekend retreat. And then thereafter, so starting September 27th, we meet every 2 weeks on Monday evenings. The other piece of feedback that I received that I thought was really helpful was that people wanted more opportunity to go into breakout sessions with their colleagues on a more consistent basis. So in the past, what we've done is, like, the first 2 months have been largely Karuna teaching you how to meditate using steps elucidated in this book, The Mind Illuminated, which is really based on what the Buddha said 2,500 years ago. And this just kind of brings it into modern technology. And then we've had guest teachers. But in order to accommodate that more co-created space, what we're doing this year is you'll largely have me September, October, November, and December. But every session will have about 30 minutes to discuss with the rest of the class how things are going, the new techniques that are being introduced. Maybe there'll be some opportunity for people who want to practice together to do that in a smaller, more intimate setting. The third piece of feedback that I received is we do have readings. So we have The Mind Illuminated. We use Pema Chodron's How to Meditate. And then there's another book called by Parker Palmer called The Courage to Teach. There's a Jane Vella book that I don't remember the title of it off the top of my head, but it's also about teaching, the power of teaching. And then there's another book called Altered Traits, which is about the science of meditation. And in the past, this has just sort of been supplemental reading that I expected you to do, but we didn't necessarily have time to discuss. So you get a lot of this. So I'm actually teaching you how to meditate, and then you take it to the cushion, you work with your meditation practice. And then those books were like an augment. But the past 2 years, people have really wished that we had a more formal setting to discuss the books. So this year there will be book discussions once a month, and it's Saturday mornings after community meditation for an hour. It's optional if you want to come, but it will give you an opportunity to actually discuss the material in the books. People do not need to have a practice to enter this immersion. This immersion is designed, if you have a practice, to strengthen it and to also work with any bad habits. One of the most common things that I find is people come in and they say, oh my God, I thought I was meditating for the past decade, but I wasn't meditating for the past decade. typically what that means is folks have been zoning out for the past decade. And because it feels good, feels different than our typically kind of busy life, they think that they've been meditating. And then I teach them what it means to kind of amplify your practice, what it means to align your practice. And then they're like, oh my goodness, I was navel gazing for a decade. So that's one of the things that kind of happens, is that if you're a beginner, you'll learn those good techniques from the beginning. And if you're an old hat, then typically I can help you shore up kind of your practice so it's more meaningful. What are some of your questions?
Well, so one of them you sort of answered. So the time involvement, that's the big one, because I teach, and now in the fall I'm still going to be remote. And I just got my schedule. I have 4 classes that I teach. 3 of them are like live, but they're during the day, so that's fine. And I'm on the East Coast, so it would be 7:30 to 9:30 for me. And you said it's every other Monday.
Yeah, and there will be, I know at least 2 people who are joining that are East Coasters, and I start and I end on time.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry that like it's going to go to 10. We will literally stop on the dime every time. I'm pretty strict about that. I feel it's important to honor people's time. And then what I ask for you to do is that you commit to sitting 10 to 20 minutes each day, apart from one day a week. And that day off, quote unquote, is when you stare at the sky, or your gardening is your meditation, or your dancing is your meditation, or your trail running, whatever it is for you, knitting, crocheting, and that you don't worry about that commitment one day a week. And then I always assign keeping a meditation journal, and it's something that I'm not good at. To, in full disclosure, I'm not a journaling person. So this year, I think I'm actually also adding 2 components. I'm going to create a meditation journal, and I'll send that out as a part of the manual. So in the past, I've just had print offs that you can kind of print off on your own. I figured some people might want to do that. Some people want to keep it digital. But that was another piece of feedback, is that people would have really appreciated kind of a manual to open and look at and know exactly where we are. And so that's something that I'll be creating and sending out ahead of time.
Yeah, I actually like to, I mean, I'm all about the digital. I do a lot of stuff digitally, but there are sometimes where I'm just like, I just want a thing.
And it'll be a 3-ring binder. So what I'll do is I'll add a certain number of pages that would be like the beginning for a meditation journal. So if people want it that way, if they want everything in one place. And then if you're like, I really like my most beautiful, like little book that has, the clasp and or leather bound or whatever you like, you could do that as well. But you'll have the option there. And I think that will help people to have kind of that place of continuity.
Okay. And you said, there's the week. So you said a weekend retreat on September. So September 10th is a Friday?
Yes. So it is. The weekend opening retreat is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday night, 6 to 9. This is all central. I have to pick a time zone, so we just operate in central.
That's okay.
Saturday is 9 to noon and 5 to 8. And Sunday is 9 to noon. What we do in that first opening weekend is in the evening, we'll get to really know one another. So we'll scramble around in some breakout groups, and we'll also set some intentions. So being that you're in education and there will be other folks that are in education, I want to share just kind of a basic philosophy I have. I will probably pull together a goal objective of some sort, but you're not going to have a whole bunch of like lists of objectives from Karuna, because what we're trying to do is actually to move out of here and down to here. And so what I'll be encouraging and inviting you to do, particularly that first weekend, and then particularly in those first few sessions, is to get real connected with your heartfelt desire. What your heart most longs for in this training. In other words, I'm going to give you the structure to work with your own personal longing. And in the meantime, you're going to learn how to meditate really potently. And what I would call will give you the basis for a lifelong meditation practice. But I'm not going to tell you what your goal is. So it's going to feel, again, kind of like co-created. And I know that people really like objectives, and they like, when the class says at the end, you're going to learn. And mine is pretty simple. By the end of the 6 months, you will amplify and align your life. And we do that in 2 ways: by learning what to pick up and learning what to put down. And then I hold that container. I hold the laboratory for you to experiment with what that means for you. I know that there's a participant that can't be there for the opening retreat. I ask people to try like hell to be there for that opening retreat, because so Friday night, we all get to know each other. We share about how everybody's nervous. They're not sure what they're doing, all that good stuff. And then I really provide that first base of how to meditate on Saturday and Sunday. And one of the time commitments I do ask you to make throughout the 6 months is to schedule a 2-night retreat. And I give you all the tools of what that means and how to do it. So this is just sort of a little teaser as to what that means. And then at the very end, we have a closing ceremony or a little end retreat. So last year, and I know again this year because she's already cleared it with me, there will be people who can't come to that first retreat. If folks can't, I ask 2 things. One, if you can even just pop in to say hi for a half hour and let, so people get to see your face, that's great. And then what I do is before that first next class is we'll all get together and I will fire hose you for 2 hours. And it's just to get you up to speed so you have that base. And what you miss out on is the spaciousness of sort of easing your way and getting in connection with your heartfelt desire and things like that. But at least you have the techniques so that you're not behind when we kick off. So the bi-weekly Monday evenings classes start on September 27th.
Oh, 27th. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like, yeah. And then the other.
And it goes till when?
The last weekend in February. Yep. And then what happens in January and February is we have some guest teachers. They will come in and they will talk about, I'm hoping we have a 2-part module on creating safe spaces. So in the world of healing, how do we create safe spaces, particularly LGBTQ, so that everyone feels welcome? So that's 1 month. We'll probably be guest facilitator for that. And then we will also have trauma-informed methodology. And in the past, I've had a lot of guest teachers, but instead this year, what I'm doing is I'm incorporating what are called master classes. And this is what we've done for the yoga immersion that's wrapping up in a few weeks, and it's worked great. So Saturday mornings, once a month, there will be some sort of supplemental masterclass that's included in the registration and will complement what we're doing. So for example, and don't hold me to who's doing what when, but I'll just give you kind of an example of what's happening. September will be the science of meditation. So while my background is Tibetan Buddhism, the practice that I share, shamatha, shamatha, or calm abiding, is really just you're using your breath as anchor and you're holding a field of awareness. So you're not trying to suppress any sensations, whether it's sound, whether it's thought. but you're learning how to work with it, which is really useful when you go out into the world, which is why this is a very practical training. I like to say it's like, how do you take what you learn on the cushion and take it out into the world? Okay. So the science of meditation is a really good augment to that, because then you're going to kind of understand how we begin to make new grooves in our neural pathways, which is really cool that we can do that, right? We have neuroplasticity. Another example is contemplative meditation. So Kelly Lindsay will be talking about how you can take a poem, or you can take something that you're working with and use that in your meditation practice after you've stabilized the mind through shamatha. Hector Marçal, who's my teacher, he will be talking about analytical meditation. So this is when you can take a concept like, what does it mean, let's say, to be kind and compassionate in the world? And then you can examine it from all different directions. So that's analytical meditation. We'll also be having an introduction to Zen, and that'll be with Anne Heinen. So she'll be sharing sort of a different tradition than what I come from. So these are all examples of the master classes that'll be taking place about once a month as we go along the journey as well.
That's really cool.
And then, of course, anything that you can't make it to, because people do have lives, we provide recordings.
Okay. That's great. You made me think of another question that I hadn't originally had, but kind of along those lines, and you were talking about creating safe spaces and stuff like that. So one of the reasons I'm thinking of doing this is where I teach at a community college in Brooklyn. So most of my students are people of color. I teach music and theater, and I really want to, my interest is in possibly doing this, getting certification and bringing it into my classroom with my students, particularly my theater students, but even, even my non-majors, because I think of, my students can use this, like really, it's, especially the past year and a half has been really, really tough on most of our students. So I know that the amount of stress that they are under normally without the pandemic is also really high. And I want to help give them tools for this. And so even if I can do something like 10 minutes of class or something like that to help them out. So that's sort of where I'm going. But I know, I'm going to get, as we're talking about, equity and everything in most of our existence right now, like, will there be anything to do with that and how to address like equity and representation and things like that in this field? Because I know most of my students see it as like a white lady thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what it's going to come down to. So I want to be able to have that addressed somehow. I don't know if that's, it's just like kind of like putting it out there, because that's what my interest is. But I think it's also really important that we do that and everything. But I don't know if there's any plan on having someone like that come in.
Yes. So that's all of January. And I'm just hesitant to use the exact phrase of what I think the workshop will be, because they haven't confirmed, but it will be something like creating a safer space. And the folks that I'm talking with to bring this in, they work with diverse populations. They're actually out of New York, and that workshop will be all about how we work in the world of equity.
Great. Okay.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And if it's not them, though, I'm praying it will be someone, and that has been a part of our curriculum the past 2 years, but I recognize that it's timely and also more
urgent now.
It's more urgent, and also it needs to be done right. And so I've actually spent a lot of time over the past year figuring out who the right facilitators will be. And I'm very excited about these folks that I've been talking with. And I would expect that it'll be in January, and it would actually take up both of the 2 sessions.
That's really cool.
And then also, just so you know, Jenna De La Chenet, who will be doing our trauma-informed workshop, which will be in February, she's also in Brooklyn and works with diverse populations. And so there will be a lot of overlap there as well.
Oh, that's great. And that's right
Yeah.
before I go to work in person, which is going to be awesome. Maybe I can meet them in New York.
Oh, yeah. And then I'll just kind of go back because you touched on it. So the teacher training part, just to be real clear about how it works, we'll have a weekend, and let me see if I can figure out the exact weekend. November 1st, 6 to 9 p.m., 3-hour special session. So here's what happens. I teach you how to guide meditation. You and your colleagues start getting together. You get assigned a partner, and you start getting together over the next 2 weeks, and you practice with each other. And it's a safe space, and it's really fun to watch how friendships grow from this. It's an amazing, vulnerable, courageous act. And then you start guiding on community meditation, and you have 6 practicums that you'll engage live on community meditation. And even if you don't want to become a community meditation teacher, that's perfectly okay. This is just the laboratory so that I can help facilitate. And so the first session, I'm there with you, and I give you only positive feedback. And then by the 6th session, you're a pro, and I'll hop on one more time. And then if there's any little thing that still needs a little shoring up, I'll let you know in a very kind, courageous way. And if you're good to go, which is most people, then it's like you're a graduate and congratulations. And then a lot of people keep teaching because honestly, or they keep guiding because they love it and the community is awesome. And so it's fun to watch, especially the folks who kind of start out with, I don't know if I want to teach. And then they're like the ones who are like on loudspeaker about how amazing it is. So what that'll do is if you want to bring it into your, if you would be a nurse, if you want to bring it into your practice there, if you work in corporate and you want to bring it into the boardroom, if you work as a teacher at a community college and you want to bring it to your classes for 10 minutes in the beginning of each class, you will know how to do that.
Yeah. Great. I have 2 more questions.
Great.
One question is sort of like 2, but in your email or somewhere, you had mentioned something about work study, and I wanted to know what is involved with that.
It sort of depends. So our work study, in the past, we've had people who have helped with transcribing. We've had people who have helped with blogs. We've had people who have helped with course posting. It sort of depends on what we need. And it also depends on what talent you have. So sometimes we're looking for a talent that matches what you're up to in the world. So usually it's on a case-by-case basis. And I just have to I have to know if that's something you're interested in. And then we have to see if there's a match quickly. So I think the training is $3,200, and there's an early bird special of $2,800, which is the past 2 years cost if it's paid before July 1st. We can always work with people on payment plans. So I will usually ask folks if they say that they need to pay it out for, let's say, a year. We're happy to do that. I usually just ask for some sort of deposit to start with as a kind of skin in the game. And then we can work out a payment plan for the rest of it. But I always say, don't let cost be the thing that holds you back. Mind Oasis is a 501c3 nonprofit. So this is one of our biggest sources of revenue for our organization. So it's important that we get a bunch of people who are paying, but we also recognize that, folks sometimes need a little help.
There's a lot of online teacher training programs out there. So why should we choose this one?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So there's a few
I know
different.
what, but yeah, but I think
Yeah.
it's a
No, I think it's a really good question. I think that there are a few different answers. One is we end up with about 20 students, maybe 25 at the most. So there's a lot of opportunity for personal interaction. And Jessica, you know, from being on community meditation, like our whole jam on Mind Oasis is about community. So it's like,
Mhm.
I don't come in and say, oh, I'm the teacher and y'all are the students. I come in and say, okay, I have some knowledge that I'm going to impart, but let's co-create this program together. And each year it looks just a little bit different. So I think that one aspect of what we bring on Mind Oasis is that it's really a co-created space. And then I don't know of another organization that you go through the teacher training and you are hired, if you want to, guide. And on Mind Oasis, we hire our teachers after they go through the training to be guides on community meditation. And so, you know, when I went through my meditation teacher training, I got done and I would go to my local yoga studios and say, hey, I'd really like to bring a offering on meditation and the six perfections. And it was like, okay, well, sorry, you know, you're not a well-known teacher and we don't really have space for that. So I think that one unique aspect of Mind Oasis is that we really train you and then we provide a platform, if you want it, to be able to bring your teachings alive. So that's unique. And then third, I would just say, I know how to teach you meditation that is potent, lifelong, and powerful. And I like to say that I'm a better meditation teacher than I am a practitioner. And I think it's true. So like, I don't know anyone who's left the immersion that hasn't received a potent teaching around having a consistent and meaningful practice that you can tap into, whether you're on the cushion or you're in the grocery store or you're in your car.
great.
And that I stand by.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then, oh my God, because we have a lot of effing fun. Like, and I'm not entirely sure that there's a ton of places out there that aren't kind of stuffy, and we're not stuffy, right? And then on top of it, I guess the last thing I would say is, geez Louise, from the second you sign up until the end of March, actually, because there's some extra master classes at the very end if you want them, you have access to all of our programs for free, which is like, if you take advantage of it, it's like thousands of dollars of access to programs. And the reason that we do that for the immersion is because it's really important for you to have exposure to different teachers, different styles, different learnings, so that you walk away like with this really wide breadth of knowledge. So to me, like the focus, which is not wide, it's deep, is the meditation practices that I teach. You're going to get real narrow and real deep and really good at it, right? Mm-hmm. But the exposure is this like massive exposure. And I'm not entirely sure that other online courses are doing that, maybe, but not that I'm aware of. And so it's live and interactive, and it's not pre-recorded, and you get access to a lot of amazing human beings and community.